Our story this month is of a young woman living in the decades surrounding the turn of the 20th century. Helen Boston Searcy was, among other things, a feminist leader, a photographer, and a collector of oral histories of the people in and around Durango. Helen Boston Searcy helped preserve the stories of early Durango, and her work is still preserved at the Animas Museum. But let's not get ahead of the story. It really starts with Helen's father, Jacob Boston. Jacob was an itinerant photographer and adventurous spirit who lived and worked in many places. When Helen was born in 1875, their family was living in Ohio. But when gold was discovered in Colorado, Jacob settled his family in Canyon City, purchasing 160 acres for ranching, raising cattle, and rock mining. But his heart never surrendered its love for the art of photography. Jacob used a variety of media in the last quarter of the 19th century, from tintypes to glass plates and then photographic papers. His 1889 bird's-eye view of Durango and some 1907 shots of the Grand Mesa Lakes helped the DNRG Railroad advertise its tourist attractions. In the summer of 1889, Jacob had a large studio in Durango, located near the corner of I and First Street, today's 11th Street and Main Avenue. His building was built of wood, as was the bulk of the business section of Durango in those days. When a major fire roared through downtown Durango on July 1st, 1889, Jacob's photographic studio was totally destroyed. Well, Helen was a young teenager in 1889, and the fire apparently burned a lasting impression into her mind, because 50 years later, in 1939, she preserved her memory of that day in a written oral history, a copy of which is in the Animas Museum's collections. In 1892, Helen graduated high school. She married lawyer William Searcy in 1897, and they made their first home in Silverton, where William practiced law. When William was elected judge of Colorado's 6th Judicial District in 1912, the family, now including 2 daughters, moved to Durango and settled at 1361 East 3rd Avenue. Helen and William were charter members of the Electra Sporting Club, owning a cabin on the lake, and with a deep love of fishing in William's heart. Sadly, it was his heart which caused his death in 1932 at the age of 64. In addition to being a community activist, Helen was also described at the time as being a historian, an artist, and an archaeology enthusiast. Perhaps Helen's greatest legacy is as a historian. In 1917, she helped organize the Sarah Platt Decker chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. She served as the group's regent from 1920 to 1924. Helen was also a regional vice president of the Colorado State Historical Society, now known as History Colorado. She was a member of the local Archaeological Society and the Durango Camera Club. During World War I, she was active in the Red Cross, and she was a sponsor of the Americanization School in Durango, which held classes for those desiring U.S. citizenship. An article in the January 23, 1925 Durango Weekly Democrat quoted her on the school's progress, explaining that participants had increased from 10 to 16 and that they were courteous and earnest people and very appreciative of this opportunity. She related a charming story about an Italian woman. A bright Italian woman in the beginner's class is accompanied every night by her clever little girl of 8, who sits beside her and often prompts her mother with a whispered word. In the late 1930s, Helen spearheaded the effort to collect pioneer stories and produce articles for the Pioneers of the San Juan Country, Volume 1, which was published in 1942. Volume 2 of the story collection was published in 1946, just a few years before her death on January 8, 1947. Thanks to Helen Searcy, these artifacts and stories are preserved and shared by the Animas Museum, which are part of a statewide initiative exhibit called Moments That Made Us, looking at the struggles, triumphs, setbacks, and resilience which form this nation.